Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel, and after all this time, after all the debate and all the discussion, we finally have some numbers. As you can probably tell from the title of this video, Call of Duty has won again, but the war isn't quite over, at least as of right now. So, over the course of the past couple of days, a lot of details have been coming out about the video games industry, video game sales, and how things played out during the month of October. You guys may remember hearing a bunch of news stories about how Black Ops 4 only made $500 million during its first 3 days, which actually set a bunch of records, but the reason why I say only is because that number pales in comparison to what Red Dead Redemption 2 was able to do. They were able to make $750 million during their first 3 days. This led a lot of people, myself included, to believe that we were going to have another year where Rockstar Games outsell Call of Duty, but so far that does not appear to be the case, because according to the NPD Group, which is a market research firm, which is pretty much the definitive source for all video game sales information, Black Ops 4 was indeed the best-selling game in the month of October, finishing slightly ahead of Red Dead Redemption 2. Now, this of course isn't to say that COD is better than Red Dead, or that Red Dead is better than COD, or anything like that, right? Because these are two completely different games in completely different genres, but they are still both video games, and therefore they are competing within the same space. Overall, the month of October was actually very good for the games industry. Not only did it break the record for most money made in October, which was a record that has stood since 2008, but it was also the biggest October since the NPD Group started tracking video game sales back in 1995. Money made in October was up 73% compared to last year in 2017. Console sales are up nearly 20% compared to last year. Overall, October was just a really good month for the gaming industry, and I imagine that success is going to continue into November and December as we get closer to the holiday season. Now, to back things up here for a second, I want to go back and talk about that entire debate of Call of Duty versus Rockstar Games. And the reason why I want to bring it up is because while the games are typically very different, they are, like I said, still video games, therefore they are still competing in the same space, and traditionally Rockstar Games are the only games that can really overthrow the Call of Duty franchise. If you guys don't know, back in 2008, Grand Theft Auto 4 came out, and that outsold Call of Duty World at War. In 2010, the original Black Ops ended up outselling Red Dead Redemption, but then in 2013, Grand Theft Auto 5 ended up beating Call of Duty Ghost. Well, here in 2018, people thought that maybe after that incredible opening weekend, that Red Dead 2 would end up beating Black Ops 4, which would be just another chapter in this rivalry, but so far that has not been the case. Of course, Black Friday was yesterday. We don't have the sales figures for November yet. We don't know what's going to happen in December, but so far, based on October's numbers, Black Ops 4 was able to slightly beat out Red Dead 2, which makes this rivalry even more interesting. Now, while that's all well and good, I suppose this isn't exactly great news for Call of Duty as well, because I think we can all agree that Black Ops 4 has suffered a little bit because of how determined that Activision and Treyarch were to beat Red Dead Redemption 2, right? For the first time since 2005, a new Call of Duty came out that was not released in November, and it was also the first time that an old Call of Duty game in the form of COD World War II, that game was not actually out for an entire year before the new game came out, right? And the reason why they did this, and Activision also said this in their investors report, is because they wanted more people to play during the holiday season. Basically, they wanted more sales in the fourth quarter, and they did not want Red Dead 2 to be out for an entire month before Black Ops 4 came out. As a result, they pushed up the release date, even though the game, in a lot of cases, wasn't exactly ready, right? Now, before I go any further, I want to make it perfectly clear that I do like Black Ops 4. There are some people out there, I don't get it, man. Sometimes I'll say things like, I don't like the black market. I hate what they're doing here with the black market. And people say, well, you hate Black Ops 4. It's like, no, I just don't like the black market and the fact that they're charging $20 for a couple of skins. Like, there's a big difference between hating the game and hating a microtransaction system, right? And I like Black Ops 4. I'll probably do a full review of the game. Now that it's been like a month and a half, I'll probably have another review going up sometime soon. But suffice to say, I find the core gameplay experience of this game to be fantastic. The multiplayer to me is still a lot of fun. Blackout is fantastic. Zombies is fantastic. The entire game as a whole is really good, but that's not to say this game does not have a lot of bugs. There are plenty of bugs and plenty of issues with this game, and I'm not even talking about the black market here. I'm just talking about actual bugs that can make make your gameplay experience worse. Like, for example, custom classes not working after a certain prestige, red dot sites randomly disappearing, care packages that you call in that never actually come in. I actually showed you guys this clip in a recent video. My brother called in a care package, the helicopter showed up, and it never actually dropped off the care package. Basically, the chopper just stood there in the sky for about 4 minutes or so until the game ended, and the care package never actually came down. How does that even happen? We have other problems where this clip right here, I kill this guy, and I level up my auger because I killed him and he was using the auger even though I was using the cordite. How does that make any sense whatsoever? We are over a month into this game's life cycle, and we still don't have leaderboards, we still don't have combat records, we still do have that game-breaking glitch which can remove all of your progress from a given game session if your black market decides to bug out. I could go on, right? There are plenty of problems here with Black Ops 4, but to Treyarch's credit, they have been pretty open about most of these issues, and they have been working to resolve most of these issues, but it's clear that from a technical perspective, Black Ops 4 was not ready to launch when it did, and as a result, players are bound to spend the first few months of this game's life cycle waiting for everything to get worked out. As much as I hate to say it, this problem isn't even exclusive to Black Ops 4 either, right? Because last year with Call of Duty World War II, we had a lot of the same issues, and it wasn't until about 6 months into that game's life cycle that the game really started to feel polished and complete. The same was true with Modern Warfare Remastered. Remember how that game had 10 hertz servers for like 4 or 5 months? And the same was also true of Infinite Warfare. That game wasn't even beta tested until like a week before it came out. The list goes on, right? That's why I say the success that the gaming industry had in October is both good and bad. It's good that video games as a whole are growing and becoming more popular, but it's also bad because developers and publishers are all so hell-bent on competing with one another that pretty much every video game that comes out these days comes out in an unfinished state. Moving away from Call of Duty here for a second, I think that Fallout 76 is a great example of that, right? This game, as much as I love Fallout and I love Fallout 76, don't get me wrong, that game was not ready for launch whatsoever, but it was pushed out because they wanted to have it be part of the big fourth quarter rush. The same is also true of Red Dead Redemption 2, but it's true in a different way, right? Because Red Dead 2 is phenomenal on pretty much all accounts, but I'm sure you guys have heard the horror stories about what the dev team had to go through working those 100-hour weeks to actually make sure the game was ready on time. The details are still pretty sketchy at best, but lots of employees at Rockstar were saying that the crunch time for Red Dead 2 led to heavy drinking at work, it led to a couple of divorces and damaged relationships and mental breakdowns because they were working so hard to get that game out on time and make sure it was as polished as possible. That's definitely not a good thing, right? Now, in the case of Battlefield 5, DICE actually chose to delay the game to make sure it was ready for launch. Reviews of the game so far are actually quite positive if you look past the SJW side of things, but it's still pretty early and we don't know exactly how well that game is going to be reviewed and how well that game is actually going to play out. So it's definitely a very interesting time in the gaming industry, and I have to wonder, how long is this going to be able to go on for? Because it's not like this just started happening in 2018 where developers start pushing out unfinished games. It's not like it's going to stop happening in 2019 either. This is kind of par of the course for the gaming industry right now. Developers and publishers are in such a hurry to get their games out, and to be fair, at the same time, fans like you and I, we're always eager to play whatever's coming next, right? Just look at the best-selling games of 2018 so far. Keep in mind, this is for both Xbox One and PS4. We have Black Ops 4 at number 1, Call of Duty World War II at number 10, despite coming out last year, and most of the other games here are also part of different established franchises, which is not a bad thing, right? It's good to love a franchise and always want more content from that franchise. Everyone knows I've been waiting for a new Borderlands game for freaking ever, but this does create a situation where games can end up being released in a buggy state because there is so much demand for those games. That's why I've always been an advocate of delays when delays are actually needed. I actually said in a few videos a couple years ago that I am all for Call of Duty ending its annual release cycle and instead putting more time and more content into each individual game, which a lot of you guys actually agreed with. I was super surprised with how many people were actually in favor of Call of Duty ending the annual release cycle. Right before Black Ops 4 came out, I decided to put up a poll on my Twitter, and I was shocked to see that 83% of the people that voted on that poll were open to the idea of COD ending the annual cycle. Now, obviously, there are pros and cons to this idea, which I could spend another 20 minutes talking about here in this video, but in short, allow me to summarize it with this. Annual games, like we've had pretty much forever here in the Call of Duty franchise, the positive side of that is we oftentimes get more variety and possibly more change with each game being made by a different developer, but as a result of that, we oftentimes get less content with those games, and those games also have a lot more bugs and problems throughout the majority of their life cycles. In the case of semi-annual games, like hypothetically if Call of Duty were to release a new game every 2 years or every 3 years, those games would feature a lot more content and have a lot less problems, but there would also be a lot less variety there, right? Because what you get is what you get, and if you don't like the core game that is there, then you're pretty much screwed because there's no other Call of Duty game coming out for 2 or 3 more years. It's like with Infinite Warfare. I think Infinite Warfare and even Call of Duty World War II would be great examples. Would you still be playing COD if Infinite Warfare was the only COD game to release for 3 straight years? What about Call of Duty World War II? If that was the only COD game guaranteed to be coming out for the next 3 years, would you still be playing Call of Duty to this day? For a lot of people, probably, but for other people out there, probably not, right? Because that game was super polarizing, which is why the annual release cycle has worked so well throughout all of these years. If you don't like a game, there's always something right around the corner. There's always something new to look forward to. Heck, right now, Black Ops 4 is like a month and a half old, something like that, and people are already excited for Modern Warfare 4 and Modern Warfare 2 Remastered, which are both heavily rumored to be coming out next year. There's always something new to look forward to, so there's definitely a lot of factors to consider here, but with how well that annual release cycle has been doing, I really don't see Activision changing up the system anytime soon. But regardless, I would love to hear down there in the comments, what do you guys make of Black Ops 4 selling so well right out the gate, and what do you think about Activision potentially ending the annual release cycle? Would you be for or against that? Why or why not? Leave all your thoughts and feedback down there in the comments, and as always, I will keep you guys posted with more details as we learn more about November and December's sales figures. But until then, I hope you guys all enjoyed this video. Thank you all so much for listening, and I hope you guys all have a wonderful day.